you can't. You have to let me get rid of the eye bugs. That's like minimal. Is that where you're sitting? They're not gonna be able to hear me over you purring. Wow, what an unflattering camera. That is what it is. Oh, my mic. Let me get the mic. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully this is working and it sounds better. She left when I went to get the mic. I don't know if you would constitute this as video diaries. I am filing it under a podcast. I know everyone has a podcast these days, but let me rewind a little bit to explain. I graduated. I make a short story long, but to make a long story short, I graduated undergrad in 2023, and I immediately started working a full-time job. I know, lucky me. And at that same time, in May of 2023, Brittany Broski started her podcast, Broski Nation. I would watch my episode every Tuesday on my lunch break religiously. It was like my sanctuary. And for a whole year, I watched and I just admired the way that it was really like fluid and all over the place, and I felt like I was sitting with a friend. But I also kind of like hate watched. And I just thought, that could be me. Like, why do I always get in the way of myself doing things? So towards the end of 2024, I felt pretty strongly about towards the end of 2024, I had started thinking about if I wanted to get a master's. And while I wasn't entirely sure about that just yet, I knew that there was a lot of things I was thinking about in like my artistic practice that didn't necessarily need to be like physically embodied. They were just like thoughts that I was having that I wanted to think out more. And so I started thinking, okay, if I don't want to write these, because I used to write articles, I still like writing, I just don't think everything is meant to be written. And to be honest, if I'm trying to like have a conversation with most folks, they don't want to read anymore, it's really video-based content, then, maybe a podcast is really the way to go about it. I know, everyone has a podcast, everyone has something to say, and quite frankly, most of the time, everyone is saying a whole lot of nothing. But I was like, okay, I want to start a podcast. And so at the end of 2024, I told my partner I wanted to do that. He agreed to help like do all the filming and editing. I got like a setup in our apartment, and he was going to help me with the logo. And then month after month throughout 2025, we just had excuse after excuse after excuse, for why we didn't do it. I was waiting on him to do the logo. I was unhappy with the space that we had that I was going to film in. We were going back and forth if we were going to film it like on a fancy camera, or because like we have a nice camera, or I felt more comfortable doing it on my phone, but then my phone started dying, so on and so forth. There's always something getting between you and this thing that you want to do. I had written, they all live in here, I'd written all these ideas for episodes and all these things I wanted to talk about. I'd done research for them. A lot of it came from the fact that during 2023 and 2024, I wasn't really making art after I graduated. I felt really burnt out from constantly being in classes, just doing project after project after project, which was great, but also I was like, I need a break. So I shifted gears entirely and I switched to reading, and I would just read. And so I was having all these thoughts, and I was writing all these thoughts in my journal, and that's kind of where all the ideas in this notebook for the podcast come from. But I don't know, I get in my own way. I get in my own head, and I found excuse after excuse for why I couldn't do it, despite all my incredible friends being so supportive and knowing that I have these conversations with my incredible friends. And I kind of don't want to have to repeat myself all the time. I'd like to have like a book club sort of situation where like we're talking about it in one shared space consistently. So here's the stitch. In 2025, my partner and I decided, you know what, we need to move. We need to do a completely fresh start. And I think that 25 was a really crucial year for me. And I wasn't ready to start this at that time. I did so much growing in the last year. I am going to attribute a good amount of my improvement to starting Lexapro, to getting on top of my health again. And I want to say that the key thing that has brought me joy in the last year has been my incredible relationships. However, many of my friends moved in the last year, and that was also what propelled us to move. So a month ago, we packed up, we packed everything up more than a month ago, but we packed up all of our belongings and we moved from Chicago to New Mexico. We've been planning it over the course of the previous year. The idea is that Jules will be attending the University of New Mexico here for film, and I am just going to make the most of it. I just really needed a new environment. I was finding myself really miserable and stuck in this like repetitious cycle in Chicago that I could not get out of. I would just go to work and I would be burnt out, and I would come home and I would just wallow. And then like if I had free time on the weekends, I was kind of like going through the motions. I was going to exhibitions, I was going to hang out with friends, I was always busy because I felt like I had to be active. I had to be productive. Everything had to be for something. There was very little I did to just like relax or enjoy. It was incredibly performative. And I couldn't break out of that cycle. And I have once in my life before completely ripped myself out of my environment and started over from scratch. And I just knew that that was what I needed. I really want 2026 to kind of be like my 2016. If that makes sense to you, amazing. The girls who get it. 16, God, what an insane year. Not my best year, and at the same time, one of my best years. Like, some of the most traumatic things in my life happened to me that year. I was the most depressed I have ever been in that year. And at the same time, I was like the most alive. And that's kind of the vibe I'm trying to go for. Like when you are 16 and something goes wrong or something goes right, it is like it's the whole world. It is everything happening. You are so alive. And that is really the energy I'm trying to have this year. So, all the perfectionist in me aside, I decided to just record this on my MacBook because my phone is a piece of crap and my new phone doesn't come till Wednesday. I could sit here and I could say that I can just film this next weekend. I could have said that I couldn't film because I didn't do my makeup or my hair. I need to change my outfit. I needed a different background. I can make up a million excuses for myself. But honestly, a lot of this is just the pushing myself aspect. This is just me sitting down and saying that you need to do it regardless of what you think other people will think. So, New Mexico. Why New Mexico? It was kind of serendipitous. Maybe that's the word. I think it was like a draw. We came to New Mexico in 2024 to visit my friend Carly, and we kind of just fell in love. I'm not gonna lie, we were driving one day, and I was like, I get why all the white artists move out here. I get why they're painting all the clouds in the mountains. I get it. I get it now. Because before I couldn't have cared less. And the second you're here, you really just feel it. Like I get why it's called the Land of Enchantment. So a year later, we talked about it a bit, and we came back in 2025. Jules toured University of New Mexico, toured in Colorado, we toured in Chicago, we looked at a lot of schools, and he was like, there's no competition. And I went, that's so crazy. It's so crazy you feel that way, because I had started working on a project at work, and said project at work involved an artist who I don't want to dwell on her too much, but she came to the University of New Mexico. She got her master's here. She met the curator of the exhibition. They worked together for many years. Then they went to the Art Institute where I went to school and where I worked. And that's why we did this exhibition on her. And it just like felt very serendipitous that New Mexico just kept coming up and kept coming up and kept coming up. So after we decided, okay, we're going to move and we're going to go to school in New Mexico, then it was like, we need to get a car because you don't have a car in Chicago. So it was like, okay, let's get a car. And we got a car from Julian's family. And as silly as you may think this is, I thought it was a sign. We got a Hyundai Santa Fe. There was just all these like little things. And so the most recent little thing was I told myself for almost over a year that I was going to start the book, The Artist Way. And I found a copy for free last summer, 2025, in one of the little libraries in my neighborhood. And I was like, amazing. And then, of course, week after week, I found excuses for why I couldn't do it because I was like, I can't commit. I just don't have the time. I don't have the energy. So I kept telling myself, when we move, I will do it. Well, started it yesterday. I'm reading the foreword and then the introduction. And the foreword and the introduction talk about how the woman who wrote the foreword, Natalie, met the woman who wrote the book, Julia. I love that it's written by women. In New Mexico. And then during the introduction, Julia Cameron, the woman who wrote the book, talks about how really this journey for herself that she has now documented and teaches to others started when she moved to Taos, New Mexico. If you are unfamiliar with a map, Taos is about 2.5 hours north from Albuquerque. I have not been yet. We were going to go this week and it just did not work out. Now I'm feeling like I really have to go. I had no idea that the person who wrote this very, very famous book came to New Mexico. 2 nights ago, I got a little, I don't know what I'm allowed to say without, I guess it doesn't matter. I got high. And I was sitting there thinking about how I put up all these excuses about, I can't film because I haven't unpacked all these boxes and I don't want to film in the living room, or I can't film in the office because it's like a shared space. It's not like only my studio and I want where I film to be representative of myself. Then it was like, okay, I can't film because my phone is dying and it can't even take a photo without burning up, let alone a video. Well, I went yesterday to get a new phone and it's being shipped and it won't be here till Wednesday. So then it was like, do I wait and do this next weekend? Because I start my new job on Monday. And now the list goes on and on and on of reasons why I can't do this. And then it's like, when will I do it? And I don't think any of that needs to matter, quite frankly. I just need to challenge myself. So this morning I read the first introduction pages to The Artist Way. I did not start week 1. I will start week 1 tomorrow because tomorrow is Sunday and I'm going to do the Sunday to Sunday. But I did do my morning pages this morning. And when I got to the section about the morning pages, I thought of my professor, Casey, who used to make us do that in my first neon class. And I went, man, that would explain a lot because she is so incredible. And I bet she has read and done this book. And that would explain so much about why she is the incredible artist she is that I admire so much. So I also made a list, if I can figure out where I put my phone, of people that inspire me right now, because it's part of the reason I'm just getting off my lazy butt and doing this, just making it happen. How the fuck did I misplace my phone? It's got to be one of those things where it's under my butt. Oh, I found it. Okay. I made this list last night as I was going to bed. I made the list with people whose names just came to mind. I didn't have to think beyond that. There are many people who inspire me, but this list of people that inspire me are people that I'm thinking of in this very moment, in the last few weeks. People that inspire me to be outside of myself. And they're all women. They're all women. Can't say there's many men that inspire me, but that aside, I'm going to explain why these people inspire me. And it's going to be a little silly. They're in no particular order. First off, Alyssa Liu, the gold medal figure skating champion. I have been watching her for the last 2 weeks and just absolutely enamored and mesmerized by her. And she's 20. And I keep thinking about how she has figured out so much at such a young age. And her just pure pursuit of joy and inhibition. And it has been so inspiring and so beautiful to watch. Next person on my list is Bonnie, aka Saiko. Bonnie, if you're watching this, you have been inspiring me for years. I watch your freedom, or what feels like freedom, and also your, what is the word I want to use? Resilience, even when you're going through it, to continuously bounce back. For those who do not know, Bonnie went to school with me, and I have just watched from the sidelines in awe, and it's not jealousy, it's like pure respect. I just think that Bonnie is so unabashedly themselves and so cool and so kind and original and creative, and obviously I'm aware that everyone is insecure in some way, but she just seems invincible. The next person on my list is Doechii. Last year, I was so inspired by Doechii, and I'm still inspired by Doechii. And Doechii is on my mind, especially at this moment, because Doechii just filmed that shit on a laptop or their phone, and she just did the artist way, and she just fucking did it. She just got out there and she did what she wanted to do. And God, there's really not much else to say about that other than she really is that girl. And if I could even be 1/10 of the woman that Doechii is, I'd be so much more fulfilled. Okay, Brittany Broski, Drew Afuelo, and Caleb Heron. They are such freeing people to me, and I love to watch their content, and I want to be their friend really bad. And so if anything, they inspire me to get up off my ass, say what I'm thinking, and that hopefully one day it will cross their paths and we can hang out. It's really that simple. I'm doing all of this just so I can be their friends. Then we have my friend Sarah, my friend Laura. They inspire me in the way that they support me. I've been thinking about this one a lot. I was thinking about it earlier. I took myself out to brunch with my partner, and I was thinking about them and how I am so fortunate and so lucky to have not one, not two, but 3 people, my partner, Sarah, and Laura, who I can just talk about anything at any time, and it truly feels like they know, they understand, and they care. There was a time in my life not so long ago that I had no one, and I thought I would always have no one. And I have found myself more and more, nearly daily, over the last year, just considering how truly fortunate and lucky and privileged I am to know the love that I have from these individuals. And so it almost feels like a fucking disgrace and like an offense if I don't push myself when they have supported me so much. So this one's for them. Then we have Verite. Verite is a musician that I love, and I have loved since I was like 16. And so there we go, a decade of this coming together. I almost put Halsey on this list and I did not, because that seemed a little corny. I feel like I didn't even need to say much about that, but truly just an artist that I feel does it for the love of making art, and if people connect with it, then that's all the more powerful. But at the end of the day, they don't need anyone else's validation. What do we have next? Oh, we have Casey Lees. Casey Lees is a neon and glass sculpture artist. I met Casey in 2022. I had been trying for years to get into a neon class, and when I met Casey in like a admiration, like teacher, what's the other word? Anyways, I fell in love. I admire Casey beyond words. Casey, if you're watching this, you inspire me so much. And Casey's actually one of 3 women that come to mind that I have had the privilege of being under their tutelage when I went to the School of Art Institute of Chicago. that school was its own ride. That is a whole other conversation. But I feel incredibly fortunate because sometimes I felt more inspired by the people that I was working with than the things I was learning about or doing. I would say the first one was Katie O'Neill. She was a phenomenal photography professor, and I had the most wonderful time working with her. Then I would say Casey. And then the next one in order of like when I met them is Marjana. So Katie O'Neill, Casey Lees, Marjana Abrahamic, some of the most incredible female artists that I admire, but I've also had the privilege of working with, and they inspire me to no bounds. But Casey in particular, the reason that she's on this list at the moment isn't even just the artist way. Casey is on this list because I've been thinking about her so much and how free of a spirit she is and how she just travels around the world and she goes wherever she can create. She is just always following this like energy and opportunity to make art, and she really doesn't let too much get in her damn way. There are so few excuses and reasons why she can't do something. She's just incredible. Okay, I think there was one or two more. Riley Valentine. Riley, you inspire the fuck out of me. I met Riley at the first exhibition I ever did that wasn't like at school, and it was very silly. They put Riley's work over the bathroom, and they put my work over the trash can. Not to be conceited, I do think Riley and I had the best work in that show, and then we just kept crossing paths, and Riley, you are such a social butterfly. You are so exuberant. You have this like fire for creating all the time. And I know that you have been up against the wall and against all odds, and yet you have made such an incredible body of work. You are making every damn day, and it's so inspiring to me. And again, not in like a jealousy way. I just look at you and I think, God, if she can do it, I can do it in like such a wholesome way. It has been such a pleasure to know you and work with you, and I cannot wait to frame this photograph. I just need to find a frame I like. And I'm going to look at it every day. I'm going to look at this photograph on my wall by Riley, and I'm going to be inspired every damn day. Last one. Okay, it's another celebrity, but work with me here. Lola Young. I am incredibly inspired by the boundaries that Lola Young has made for herself. I am incredibly inspired by all the things that she has pushed past. I cannot say enough incredible things about this album she put out. It is one of the best albums I have heard in a very, very long time. I think she is such a raw and real original artist. I love her sound. I love her, mostly it's her unapologetic attitude. And I have found her also incredibly inspiring. There are a lot of times where I think you think about how old you are and you think life is passing you by and it's just like, oh my God, I'm so far behind already. But I have recently more and more looked at folks who are younger than me and are finding great success at a young age and finding it inspiring and positive in a way of like, you know, it's more so like a freedom, like when you're young and you're unafraid and you go on a trampoline and you jump and because that's how little kids are. They don't have that fear yet. That's what I feel and I see when I look at like Alyssa Liu, Lola Young, Riley. Folks who are younger than me but are just like so brave because they don't have the fear, or what they do have is more ambition and love for creating than they do fear. And that's very inspiring to me. So, my goal is, for now, to document over the next few weeks as I work on the artist way. Kind of iron out my situation. I think that's going to come, and I'm going to figure those things out as I'm doing this course. I will figure out a more concrete filming situation. I might figure out a more concrete editing situation, but I don't want anything to be an excuse for why I can't just do it, because it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just going to rip the audio from my videos for the sake of the podcast. And I wanted to share with you some of the episodes that I've been planning on doing. I want to have guests down the road. I want to get to have like this open conversation, but I also find that this is going to be very important for me because I don't get to see my friends all the time anymore. I miss them a lot. Quite frankly, this is for my friends, and you can be my friend now too. But if you want to keep up with me, then you need to watch my video or listen to the podcast. I can't send all my friends these super long voice memos all the time about what's going on and what I'm thinking, but that's what they're there for, is for me to bounce these ideas off of. So I want to share with you some of the episodes that I'd like to do in advance so you know what you have to look forward to. But I think for now, like I said, I'll focus on more of my artist way, and as I'm doing that, then the rest will kind of come to fruition. So the first episode I'd like to do is what I would say to 16-year-old me. I want to look back just on the last decade and think about when you're a teenager. Like I said, everything feels like it's the end of the world. So what are some of the things that changed in the last decade of my life that 16-year-old me would have never imagined? Then an episode about Girls So Confusing, just a combination and exploration of that song, and I think what it inspired for a lot of women in our generation. I will get into that more deeply, but I wrote this quote that I had been thinking about. I wrote this down when I was high again, probably a year or so ago, that I have made girls my enemy before I ever gave them the chance to be my friend. If that sounds interesting, hit that like button. I want to do an episode about the feminine urge, and the only notes that I have written for this so far are crafting, gathering, trinkets, thrifting, picking. Yeah, didn't get too far on that one, but I'll come back to it. Just like these innate things that are a little bit nature versus nurture. I have this idea for an episode called Schrodinger's Hot Woman. I would like to talk about this certain reaction that men tend to have when being denied by a woman, specifically women who are deemed ungrateful for not appreciating or reciprocating compliments. This idea that they're only attractive, you only want what you can't have, and then as soon as you're confronted by it, you don't want it anymore. Then we have female rage, all the frustrations of being a woman. This one I think I'm gonna have to spend a lot more time with, but I've written down weaponized incompetence in men. Cold offices. If you don't know what that means, I'll get into it more when I actually do that episode, but offices are at a colder temperature because it's more productive and suitable for men, like their internal body climate, than it is for women, and so most women freeze and have a harder time working in offices. Things like that. The way the world is tailored to men. Different work expectations, your clothes, your hair, your attitude, ethic, hormones. I haven't noted on here, but I will note it after this. Really recommend Invisible Women. It's an excellent book. I will talk about it during that episode. An episode on hypersexuality, finding the equilibrium between being sexual versus being sexualized. That was something I started really dwelling on as that frontal lobe developed last year. I think a lot of these episodes I will have a better justice to because I wrote down a lot of these ideas at the beginning of last year, and I have changed so much from last year in all the best ways. Then we have Tongue Twisted. I want to talk about linguistics. I'm so interested in linguistics, and I won't really get into anything I wrote down on this page other than it's inspired by the book Word Slut by Amanda Montell. And so if you hadn't read it yet, I think I'm going to have to recommend that one in the episode before so that you can prepare. It's like homework. The Meraki Project, might be pronouncing that word wrong, but a deep dive into the project's accounts and overlooked statistics regarding women. Again, kind of like a follow-up or like a two-parter to the Female Rage and Invisible Woman episode. Beauty is in the eye of the consumer. The commodification of artists and hyperfixation value on visual aesthetics. Video killed the radio star. Aging out of the public eye. We focus more on looks than talent. Thinking about how a lot of musicians and artists now, it's about getting viral on TikTok more so than it is like the quality of their content or connecting with like their own special fan base. I'm very, fascinated in that topic, and so that will be a big one. Then Stitch and Bitch. I think it would just be nice to live craft, like, while I'm working on a project and talk, but that requires having people to talk to, and then, like, someone's actually watching this and interested. I'd also just in general kind of like to talk about book recommendations and a lot of the books, research, things that I've read that I'm into, and maybe a deeper dive into those. I also wanted to focus on, during that episode, discussing the queer and feminine power in craft, the craft era in art history, and anti-capitalism. Then we have a two-parter called I'm Just a Girl. And it's what does it mean to be a girl / girlhood, with a focus on people of color, women of color, and queer folks. Then on the second episode, I want to focus more on media that perfectly kind of encapsulates being a girl. Films like Little Women, Lady Bird, The Substance. So there was a book that I read, was it a year ago? Maybe it was 2 years ago now, called You Play the Girl. Real good one. I can think of one other one that I'll probably reference during that episode, just kind of talking about, like, what is girlhood? What is the word girl? Like, where do we derive that from in this idea? These are some other ideas I have that I haven't really scratched out into episodes, but I'm thinking a lot about the relationship between women and cats, using cats as a radar or a judge of character, how bonds and socializing with a cat occurs, a cat's personality. Women are compared often to cats. Felines seen as feminine and dogs as masculine. Cats aren't seen as performative, so they have less value. The lonely cat lady trope. And then it looks like that's all I put down so far. I don't think that that's actually it. Hold on. Oh, there was a time where I wanted to go over my TikToks, but I've deleted TikTok. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what else I have. I don't know if I'll have, like, a set schedule really to posting. Like I said, I haven't even finished unpacking. Start work in 2 days. I don't know what anything looks like, but I don't want that to be a reason to not start. And I'll just kind of figure it out as I go. I do think there will be times where I, like, go out on an adventure and I take y'all with. I made YouTube videos, like little music videos, when I was like 12 to 14. And at one point I had like 3,000 followers on YouTube. And I was doing collabs with other kids and I loved it so much. I had so much fun, but I've transferred schools before because I was being bullied so badly. So I erased it all. Like, I know that everything lives on the internet forever. At the same time, somehow I scrubbed that digital footprint so well. If someone finds it, honestly, I'd love to see it at this point because it's got to be hilarious. I was using Movie Star, for anyone who remembers. And I think about that one all the time, that joke of, like, if I had just stuck with YouTube when I was like 10, I'd be famous by now. And it's not about being famous. It's just, like, the determination to stick with it. So I gave it another shot. All through high school, I did the same thing I've been talking about. For anyone who's read The Artist's Way, I had the censor in my mind, which was really like years and years of bullying, and the little voice that said, this is stupid and you shouldn't do it and nobody cares. For me, it's constantly that little voice that nobody cares, that I don't matter. And nobody might care. And I might not really matter in the grand scheme of things, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You should just do it regardless, if you want to, for you. So I did that all through high school. I told myself it was stupid and I shouldn't, and I made excuses about why I couldn't do YouTube, why I couldn't film these videos I wanted to film, talking about things and making my art and sharing it. Really, it's like the making content aspect is supposed to be the sharing it. And I didn't learn to appreciate that more until college, until I went to an art school and I was taking classes with other artists and sharing a community with other people and actually learning what the word community meant. So I didn't do anything in high school until 2018. I graduated and I moved to Chicago. And when I moved into my own space, I started making YouTube videos, which I have since privated them all. Maybe I'll bring them back. Maybe I'll just bring back like excerpts of them. But it was so fun. I loved it so much. My entire freshman year, I made a bunch of videos and I loved it and I loved editing them. And then, I don't know, it just started to become a drag. I got more and more self-conscious about doing it as I like started to make more friends, and like if someone would make a little comment about something being silly, and I just kind of fell out of it. I really fell out of it when COVID hit and we went into quarantine, and like I wasn't even going out or doing anything, and I was just stuck at home wallowing and like stuck with my thoughts. It was a very dark time. And I also had kind of gotten to a point where it was like, I feel like I'm spending more time documenting the things that I'm doing than actually enjoying being in the moment. And that was a really like pivotal moment for me to come to, because it was important for my art practice too, to learn what it was that I wanted to make art about and how I wanted to make art and how I wanted to talk about things. I was learning and exploring a lot with my photography at that time. I was thinking, or starting to think for the first time intentionally, a lot about being perceived and what that means for me and for my making and for others. I would love to do an episode about that. So yeah, in 2020 I stopped making videos, and ever since I have missed it and wanted to go back. And so that's kind of what this is too, is like, why not like go back to doing it, enjoying it again. Do it if it makes you happy. That's really where that Alyssa Liu inspo comes from. Like, walk away from it if it does not make you happy. But if it does, then it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just about doing the damn thing. In addition to that, I had this like period too for maybe a year or so where I really liked making TikToks. I was more drawn to less editing with the short form content, and I was having a really great time with it. But as soon as I hit one like pothole, let's call it a mental pothole, and I just get sunk like quicksand into this like depressive pit. And so for a year, I did a pretty good job of pulling myself out. But I'm telling you, I was getting hit from every which way. Between 2020 to 2023, we had obviously COVID and quarantine. That was awful. We had, my partner and I, an apartment fire where we lost everything, including our cat. Then literally 2 months later, I had a massive retinal tear in my eye, and I had to have major eye surgery. I now have about 60% visibility, and I'm nearly legally blind in my left eye. Then about a year later, a week after my birthday, my dad died. And then a couple months later, my soul cat died. And I had to just constantly pick myself back up and to push through. And I would say for a good few years there, it was just survival mode. So I felt like moving would be a fresh start, and maybe I would be away from all those traumas that were bogging me down. Not that they aren't still there, but I just really needed a new environment. And so that's what I'm hoping for. I don't necessarily think that I'll always have the answers for things, but I'd like to have the conversation at least. I hope, I pray, that folks will be interested. I actually have no clue if even my friends will watch this, but like I said, I can't send them all voice memos all the time, and well, at least this way I can say what I've been up to and what's going on.